I'm Jake Miller from the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect those of others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Support for episode 161 of the House of Ed Tech comes from Whitebook, the perfect tool to engage students who need to work things out. On this episode, we've got 2 cool web tools to share. I've got a House of Ed Tech VIP with international flair, and we're going to be sharing Ed Tech tips for teaching in the fall of 2020, and I've also got tips for teaching from listeners like you. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of Ed Tech Podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of Ed Tech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the House of Ed Tech Podcast. It is the beginning of August 2020, which means it's hot fun in the summertime. What?
Oh, hell no.
All right, so I guess I'm not going to sing. But anyway, glad you're here for some Anytime, Anywhere professional development. My name is Chris Nessie, at Mr. Nessie on Twitter, if you are new to the program. If you're a longtime listener, welcome back. You are home once again. So, the first thing I want to hit on, and we've got a jam-packed episode full of lots of content that comes from me, and I crowdsourced, and I got a lot of great information to share from, like I said at the top, listeners like you. So, first up, Wakelet. We love Wakelet. We are riding the wave. So here is a little news on the latest Wakelet update. Wakelet has made it super easy to share your collections with others and allows them to add their own content. This is perfect for group projects, brainstorming, planning, and other ideas. If you have ideas, hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Nessie and make sure you tag at Wakelet. So with their new collaboration feature, you can do the following. Number 1, you can invite anyone to collaborate on a collection through email or through an invitation code, and you do not need a Wakelet account to collaborate on Wakelets. Number 2, you can assign permissions to contributors. You can see real-time edits to your collections as they happen. So that's googly, right? And number 3, you can collaborate across devices. So Wakelet is now, or it's pretty much been, but now it's even more iOS, Android, and iPad friendly. All you have to do, just create a collection and click the invite button, and you can invite people to collaborate by their Wakelet account, their email, or again, by sharing the link. The best part, once again, people who you want to collaborate with don't need a Wakelet account to make contributions. So that's one less thing you have to worry about. And let's be honest, we could use one less thing to worry about. That's all I have here at the top. Let's check out this episode's House of Ed Tech recommendation. So besides going and checking out new features in Wakelet, here are 2 web tools that I think you might find really useful. If you don't think these are useful for you, share them with somebody else who might find them useful. The first, the website coolsymbol.com. That's COOLSYMBOL.com. What this website will allow you to do is you can add interesting fonts or text anywhere. But I'm thinking more how we can jazz up something like Google Classroom. So coolsymbol.com is super easy to use. You go to the website, you type in your text, it'll then show you 50, 60 different versions of what you typed in plain text in a text input box, and it will give you these different fonts and funky styles that you can simply click copy on, and then you can paste into a text field inside of Google Classroom. So this will work when you title assignments, or if you're titling things that you group together on the assignments area in Google Classroom. And really, besides Google Classroom, you can use coolsymbol.com to kind of maybe jazz up your Twitter profile. It does the upside down text, the backwards text, letters inside of circles and squares. So it is pretty cool if you are not familiar with coolsymbol.com. The second recommendation I want to make might be more if you're into graphic design or making things look pretty and you like colors, because this website is called coolors.co, and that's COOLORS.co. And what coolors.co lets you do, it's a super fast color scheme generator. You can create the perfect palette of color, or you can get inspired by thousands of beautiful color schemes. So you can stop wasting your time figuring out what colors go together. You can even get the color codes that you can use in other places. So if you use something like photop.com, or you use Photoshop or Illustrator, or any place where you can input the hex code of a color, let me break that down a little. The hex code of a color is like the HTML code. So it's like the £sign or the hashtag and 6 numbers or letters that make up the code of a color. So you can get the color codes and you can use them other places. And it's really cool. You just hit the space bar on this website and it will keep generating colors that look good together. There are, again, thousands of predefined color schemes. I actually just used this recently for somebody who was interested in having some artwork done. And I asked them what their favorite colors were that might work for their design. And they gave me 3 things. They said yellow, black, and teal. And the other thing the person said was that teal, like the Miami Dolphins teal. So actually what I did was I went out and I Googled what's the Miami Dolphins hex color codes, got the color code for teal, and I started with that. And then I generated colors that went with it, and you can lock them in and you can keep generating part of the 5 colors in the color scheme. So really cool if you teach graphic design or you do stuff in Photoshop or you like to make stuff and you're never quite sure what colors will go together. Try coolors.co. It's super fast, super simple, and I just used it, so I can swear by it. Those are my 2 House of Ed Tech recommendations. All right, feature content time, where we are taking a look at tips for whatever teaching is going to look like in the fall of 2020. And for my piece of it, because again, I crowdsourced, so I have a lot of great tips for teaching in the fall of 2020 that came from the world. But I'm going to focus on how we can look at education technology with, again, whatever teaching is going to look like here in 2020, in the fall of 2020. So I came up with 5 things. One of these 5 is going to sound very familiar. Number 1, patience. Number 2, curiosity. Number 3, reliable. Number 4, flatten the curve. And while you've heard that term before, that's not the one I'm talking about. And the final one, number 5, here we go, just give it a try. All right, let's break this down. So typically when I have been interviewed on other podcasts because of my passion for education technology, I am always asked, what my favorite tech tools are and what's the best tool out there. And if you've ever heard me on those other shows, or you've heard me here, it's not about any one tool. We need to have a broad spectrum of tools that we like to use and are familiar with. And with many tools, because let's be honest, in the world we're living in, technology that's here today could be gone tomorrow. Thank you, Google. So we need to be aware of the skills that some tools require us to be able to use and develop. And then when certain platforms go away, new platforms will rise up and we can apply those skills that we acquired from one platform to a similar platform. Okay. Many of you might be experiencing that, as Instagram has introduced the Reels feature. And maybe you've played a little bit with TikTok, although maybe TikTok's going away, but that's a story for another day. And I still stand by it. You should go check out TikTok. But what was I saying? So we have these 5 things that we should consider. So I'm not about to talk about any specific tech tools that are going to make your life better or easier in the fall of 2020, because there's a lot of tech tools out there that fit many different categories when we're using education technology in our schools, in our classrooms, or the things that we ask students to do at any grade level. So the things I want to focus on are our mindset for when we're using education technology here in the fall of 2020. So let's start with patience. That's almost going to be the overwhelming theme of this episode. And if you're into tattoos, you might want to get this one tattooed where you have space. Patience is going to be super important because let's face it, when we did remote and virtual learning in the spring of 2020, there was some bumps, and patience is a virtue. Okay? We need to have patience. We need to remain calm. We need to go into anything we try, especially remotely, virtually, or in a hybrid learning plan, that it's not going to go as planned. It might not, but we need to have patience. We need to let our students know that they need to be patient and, remain calm. While some days it might seem like, it's the end of the world, the sky is falling and Chicken Little is running around. It's not the end of the world, okay? If it doesn't work, a tech tool, an assignment, access to something, you make a mistake, a student makes a mistake, it's okay. Have patience. Number 2, curiosity. Try new technology. There's, again, plenty of tools out there. Be open to trying new things. I did a lot of live streaming in the spring with what I did at the high school and what I did at the college level. And I'm not traditionally, as you know from listening to this program for any amount of time, I talk about wanting to do stuff on YouTube and do live streaming and do things like that. This forced me to do that. And I became way more comfortable hitting that go live button. Or if you've ever watched Podcast PD, I'm okay in front of the camera. I can do well with a little improv, off-the-cuff commentary. But now you put in a lesson plan where you have some structure, you have some organization, and you want to try and convey information. It just makes it that much easier. So be curious about new tech tools. If there's something you've wanted to try and you still haven't tried it, I'm Italian. You could pretend you're Italian. Or if you're Italian, just be Italian. See what sticks. Try a new tool. If you have always used Pear Deck and you're like, well, what could Nearpod do for me? Try Nearpod. Make a lesson. See how it goes. There's plenty of tools out there. See what's going on social media. Ask questions. See what your colleagues are doing. Just be curious. Number 3, reliability. Okay? This can go in a couple of directions. Be reliable for your students. Let's start there. Be somebody this fall that your students can count on. Across K through 12, whether your students will admit it or not, there is a cross-section of the student body that is anxious and uncomfortable, and quite honestly, they might be scared. Okay? You might also be feeling those same things. Be somebody your students can count on. Be reliable. The other direction that we can take reliable in is understand that some technology we want to use, we've used in the past, we want to try, might not be reliable. We've all, in the physical classroom, prepped for a lesson and the internet goes down. Or they're doing maintenance on the filter and now you can't access it. What do? You have a plan B. Understand that sometimes the things you have counted on you might not be able to count on them, and that's okay. Go back to number 1, have patience. Go back to number 2, something doesn't work. Oh, this might be a good opportunity to try that other tool. Number 4, flatten the curve. In this case, the curve I'm talking about is the learning curve. We all want to learn how to do things. That's our goal as a teacher with our students, is to get them to be able to do things and think things and create things and write things and all of these things. Make it easy. Don't overcomplicate the technology for yourself or for your students. Flatten the learning curve. Break things down. Overly break them down. You made screencasts, you made Loom videos, you did Screencastify in the spring. Use those skills. Create the tutorials. Make it easy for your students to use the technology that's out there. If there's something you want to try, go flatten the learning curve for yourself. You can ask people like me for help and support. You can go out to YouTube for help and support. You can go out to Twitter, to Facebook, to Instagram. Flatten the learning curve with education technology. Number 5, here's my bread and butter. Welcome to my wheelhouse. Just give it a try. Again, if there's tools you've used before, use them in new ways. Try new projects. Try new ways to assess your students. What's the worst thing that could happen? It's probably not as bad as you think. Now, I will stick to my tried and true advice, which is if, however, you are being observed by an administrator or a supervisor this school year, don't use those days to try something new for the first time. Have your students just give it a try. Let them know that you don't have all the answers. Yes, as a teacher, it's okay to say, I don't know. And if you think you know all the answers, please leave the classroom. We're not the smartest ones in there by ourselves, just like none of our students are the smartest ones in the room. But together, teachers and students can accomplish great things. So just give it a try. You have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work, reflect on it. Try again. It's the same thing we tell our students when they don't get it or they make a mistake. So apply to ourselves, and even more, reinforce that to our students. I went out to Facebook and I went out to Twitter and I asked the following question. What's your number 1 tip for teaching this fall, given the current state of the world? Before I share the responses I received, and I got a lot of them, let's take a time out for a message from this episode's sponsor. Are you a teacher who fosters creativity in your class? Are you the person who wants to save and easily organize all your notes, drawings, and doodles? Let's talk about Whitebook. I've been using their great alternative to paper notebooks and flip charts for a month now. The Whitebook flip chart is the perfect marriage between paper flip charts and whiteboards. A Whitebook flip chart comes with 20 surfaces per set, 10 double-sided sheets, one plain and the other is graph paper. Each sheet measures 2 feet by 3 feet. And their accompanying app, the Whitebook Scan, which is available for iOS and Android, their app allows you to easily digitize, organize, and sync your work to Google Drive and other popular cloud storage services. If you're tired of wasting paper and money, you should try the Whitebook flip chart or one of their other products like the Whitebook Mini Scan, Notebook, or Workbook. Go to whitebook.com and get 30% off when you use the promo code HouseOfEdTech at checkout. If you're in a position to order in bulk for your district, you can get 40% off if you visit whitebook.com/HouseOfEdTechBulk. That's Whitebook, WIPEBOOK. Thank you, Whitebook, for supporting this episode of the House of EdTech. So now let's turn our attention to Twitter and Facebook. First, let's take a look at some of the responses that I got from Facebook about the number 1 tips for teaching this fall, given the current state of the world. First up, we have Sharon Plant, former guest of the podcast. She said, be patient and kind to yourself. That's important. Matt Sly said, prepare to be a guest in 25 to 150 homes. Respect the level of connection that brings. Robert Capes, we've been in the classroom already for a week, and I'm physically and mentally worn out. It has a different feel this year. Take care of yourself seems to be the number one thing I can think of. Brian Friedlander, be flexible. Jacob Dunn, control what you can control. Casey Giuliano, focus on building relationships with students and delivering great instruction. Everything else will work itself out. Vance Lee Evans, technology will fail. Have a backup plan. Vance, I love that. Lisa Galvez Requiso, find the core of what you need to teach. Teach the essence, not the content. Heart emoji. If you can do a lesson under 10 minutes, do it. I agree, Lisa, because we're living in a generation that loves to watch YouTube videos and 60-second TikToks. We need to get in. We need to get out. We can't expect students to pay attention to YouTube or Google Hangouts for 80 minutes. So yeah, if you can do it quick, get it quick and be done and move on, because again, students can always go back and watch it again. So make sure you're recording this stuff. Also from Facebook, Christine Sorrentino, be flexible. Things can and will change at a moment's notice. Mark French, stay calm. Rachel Murat, relationships are still the number one priority. Sean Farnham, build a culture of love, respect, purpose, and creativity. This has always been true, but it is more necessary now. Jennifer Lee Quattrucci, grace over grades. Christina Greer, one day at a time. Ross LeBrun, focus on keeping yourself healthy and safe first. Just like on a plane, put your own mask on before attempting to help others. Emmanuel Andre, love this one. Let's focus more on Maslow than Danielson. Lucy Block, lead with grace. T-Shad, Teresa Shadrick's my pal from Alabama. She says, seek out ideas, solutions, and build an authentic community with other teachers. Teachers are innovators. Former colleague of mine, Chris Zama, be patient. Julie Vincentson, don't let the kids sense your anxieties. Fake it till you make it. To which I said, maybe we don't need to fake it till we make it, but let's be open and honest and transparent, because again, our students might be feeling the same thing. Abby Carlson also replied to that by saying, share how you cope with anxiety. I think being anxious is human, and coping in a healthy way is wise. How might you share your wisdom in a way that empowers the kids to also find healthy coping strategies? I love that, Abby. Thank you for sharing. Dan Whalen said, slow down. I did a whole episode on slowing down, Dan. But Dan goes on to say, we may not get to the proverbial finish line we are used to, and that's okay. We can model grace, compassion, and mindfulness for our kids, and that in and of itself is a noble learning goal. Kathy Iwanicki, have grace on yourself, on students, on parents. Yes, we are all working more closely together than ever before. Donna Lynn says, I believe building relationships regardless of the circumstances is most important. If we build relationships, we can handle everything together and be more understanding. Ruth says, be flexible. You aren't going to be able to do what you usually do for kids. What you can do it, and do it with joy. Donnie Piercy from the Partial Credit Podcast, hashtag GYCO, get your class outside. Yeah, get your kids outside as much as possible. What else we got here? S.E. Brown, connect and support. Former colleague Jenny of mine says, M&M's in your mask is a genius idea regardless of what others may think of you. I love that. Yeah, if we could find a way to put candy inside our masks, I'm down for that. Kim Matina from The Sweet Talk says, do the best you can and be flexible. You can't expect to do everything on your own. Dwight Carter, keep learning. Dr. Dan Krynas, personalize, and he capitalized it, personalize the learning. That's all the amazing Facebook that I got. On Twitter, let's shift gears here a little bit. Mandy Tolan, at Mandy Tolan EDU, she says, build relationships with your students. It's important in the classroom and virtually. It's easier to do it in the classroom, but so very important for those learning at home. If we move to virtual, I'm planning to go one-to-one time with students. That is great, Mandy. Mary Manzano, pay attention to the technical fluency and have resources for the students to learn the tools and try them out before even attempting the lesson. Frustration will set in early if this is not addressed. Mike Brilla at Mr_Brilla. He says, pause, pivot, plan, and pursue. Got that one from the Benham Brothers on the Positive University podcast. Be sure to take moments for yourself and be ready to adjust your plans. And he goes on to say, often. Abe Alarkin says, be flexible, be patient, be kind. Do you sense a theme here, everybody, about going with the flow, being patient, having compassion and empathy? That's what this is going to be all about. And actually, let me pause here for a second. How are these things not what we were about before? We just need to, as a previous person had commented, we need to take everything we do and just kind of put it on steroids and, turn it up to 11. It goes, turn to 11. Goes to 11. Right? Turn to 11?
Oh, hell no.
Sorry, Will. Stella Pollard at Stella_Pollard had a great series of tweets. She says, number 1, don't forget that you have a personal life too. If you're working from home, it's easy to feel obligated to work 24/7. Use the snooze inbox feature. Number 2, have flexibility with students as well. Times are mentally challenging. Number 3, plan and adjust. Number 4, focus on the learning first. It's so easy to fall into the trap of peer pressure, but just because a teacher has a cute Bitmoji classroom, it doesn't mean that their lessons are successful. If the extras make you feel overwhelmed, it's okay not to do them. You're still a remarkable teacher anyway. Thank you, Stella. I was eventually going to talk about Bitmoji Classrooms and how cool, not necessary. The one my son's teacher used last year, kind of annoying. So if we're putting more effort and energy into what our virtual classroom looks like, where students are clicking around and more than likely not interacting with it, we're focusing on the wrong thing. It's kind of like seat time. Yeah, that kind of applies now too. If we're focusing on how much time students spend in the seats, we're focusing on the wrong end of the learner. Just wanted to throw that in there. Tom Mullaney at Tom E. Mullaney says, hashtag Google Meet or Zoom if you must is for small groups, not the whole class. I agree / disagree with that, Tom. I think there are benefits to some whole group, larger group meetings, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet. But I also understand the value, and it's coming to Google Meets, as we mentioned a few episodes ago. The idea of the breakout room is going to be valuable for giving students the opportunities to collaborate and communicate in the small setting. So again, I see both sides of it. Beth Kolodny at Beth_Kolodny says, be flexible and understanding. Jessica Thompson at JK Thompson 5, tie in some executive functioning skills like sewing, puzzles, board games, or friendship bracelets. It's been a long time since I made a friendship bracelet, Jessica. I'd like one. Do you make them? Send me one. We're friends, right? Hashtag EduKillingIt at Killy Allison on Twitter. Speak up for yourself. So these are some great responses that came in on Twitter. And again, the theme is be kind, be understanding, be patient. I don't know what more we can do. Jeremy Yanofsky also threw in, he's at Mr. Y186 on Twitter. Consider leveraging the power of game-based learning as best you can. And he references a YouTube channel, youtube.com/engage show. I will link to that in the show notes for this episode out at chrisnessy.com/161. So yeah, again, that goes back to what I started with, which is being curious and trying new things. So maybe it's gamifying your classroom. Maybe it's using the smaller breakout rooms where maybe in spring of 2020, you got in the habit of forcing your students, whatever grade level they're in, to all attend the Google Meet or the Zoom meeting at the same time. And you were scared to maybe try the breakout feature on Zoom, or you didn't have access to it because you were a Google school and couldn't use Zoom or whatever. So again, try these new things. And I want to thank everybody, whether it was from Facebook or from Twitter, for answering the call and sharing your ideas on the social media. That's what makes the world go round. That's what makes the PLN so valuable. If you have more tips or ideas or things that we should be considering in the fall of 2020 or at any time, like what your number one tip for teaching is, go out and share it on Twitter. Go out and share it on Instagram. I am at Mr. Nessie. I am at House of Ed Tech on Instagram. You can go to chrisnessie.com/feedback. There's the Flipgrid. There's a lot of ways. Again, just go to chrisnessie.com/feedback and you can share your suggestion, and I will include them in an upcoming episode because we are better together. And now, let's meet this episode's House of Ed Tech VIP. All right, let's meet this episode's House of Ed Tech VIP. Congratulations to Mary Manzano. She is at _Mary Manzano, MANZANO, on Twitter. Her website is gtech.guru, GURU. And Mary is awesome. I recently got connected with Mary from appearing on my EdTech Life with the Fonz. And Mary, she actually hosts hashtag GURO chat. I'll be honest, I do not know what GURO stands for, but it is an educational Twitter chat that she simulcasts on YouTube and Facebook, and it happens every Saturday, because she is in the Philippines. So it's like early morning Saturday for her. So again, here's that international flair that I was excited about at the top of the episode. I checked it out. They use StreamYard to do the chat live, so it's really cool. They're doing what I think all Twitter chats should be doing, which is live stream, video, interacting, and just making it more than just what Twitter chats are. But that's a story for a future episode. I don't mean to take the spotlight from Mary, who is a House of Ed Tech VIP. Again, go out and follow her on Twitter at _Mary Manzano, and go and check out gtech.guru, and go and check out hashtag GURO chat on Twitter, and the website will take you to the YouTube channel. Go and check it out. Mary is really cool, and it's been cool to get to know her in the last couple of weeks. So again, congratulations, Mary. You are a House of Ed Tech VIP. Thank you for listening to this episode, the 161st of the House of Ed Tech podcast. Be sure to check out this episode's sponsor, Wipebook. Promo code House of Ed Tech will save you 30% at checkout. And thank you to everyone who responded to my question on Twitter and Facebook. I knew where I wanted to go with what I was going to suggest, and everybody who responded really helped to lift me up and provide even more value in what I shared. So I'm glad that I could share other people's thoughts here on the podcast. That being said, we can keep the conversation going. If we're not connected, let's connect. At Mr. Nessie on Twitter, at House of Ed Tech on Instagram. You can also go to chrisnessie.com/161 for the show notes for this episode. Leave a comment on the blog post. Go to chrisnessie.com/feedback if you've got feedback on any episode that you've listened to of the podcast, or you want to add to this episode's topic. I'd love to share your thoughts in a future episode. If you enjoy the House of Ed Tech, do me a favor. First and foremost, go tell somebody else about the podcast. Could be face-to-face, could be on social media. Use the hashtag House of Ed Tech on the socials and share this episode with somebody who would get value from it. You can also become an awesome supporter of the House of Ed Tech. My awesome supporter program is powered by patreon.com, and they allow a consumer of content like you to support a creator like me. Special thanks to Carlos Garza, Mr. G, Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher. Congratulations, Dan, on the new job. I was excited to hear that news. Jeff Herb, JP Prezavento, Kyle Wilcox, Mike Messner, Peggy George. Thank you to all of you for your support. If you'd like to become an awesome supporter, you can go to chrisnessie.com/awesome. And now, everyone in the United Kingdom, In Europe and the US, you can become an awesome supporter in your local currency, whether it's euros, the British pounds. This will help prevent you from paying extra conversion fees from your bank or your card when you pledge in a currency that's not your own. So if that was a barrier for any of my international listeners, you can now go with confidence to chrisnessy.com/awesome. You could also buy me a cup of coffee. Go visit chrisnessy.com/buymeacoffee. Special thanks to Patty and Rachel, who both supported the show after listening to episode 160. I really appreciate it. The next episode of the podcast, episode 162, will come your way on August 23rd, 2020. Until next time, thank you for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.